what does that mean? Oh, you didn't love him. Did you hate him? Did you hate him enough to kill him? Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of You Season 4 Part 1. I hope everybody is doing as well as can be. And I really do hope everybody is being as proactive as possible in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you're still on the lookout for some resources, I've linked some in the description. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on my commentary. I'm always up for a chat. I'm always up for debate. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't, give it a dislike, no hard feelings. And if you really, really like this video, consider subscribing and helping your girl out. So, You Season 4, Part 1. You is finally back for another season. And they're splitting it into 2 parts for some reason. I believe this is like the penultimate season. I'm not sure if it's been set yet. But this isn't the last season, I'm sure of that. And right off the bat, I'm not going to lie, I was upset at how last season ended, how they did my girl Love. I'm still holding out hope that maybe she's just faked her death and she's just going to pop up somewhere. I really, personally, would have liked if, you know, Love was successful, she killed Joe, and then Love, and then we continue with Love, because I feel like Joe, I've seen too much of him. I'm seeing too much of him repeat the same bullshit. I'm kind of a bit bored of Joe. I personally would have liked this series to continue with Love. But, you know, we've got what we got. And we've got Joe now coming to London. And I was kind of thinking, where are we going to go now with this next season? Because the storyline is getting a bit boring now. He's just following girls now seemingly around the world now. We're going international, we're in Europe now. He's gonna go on this redemption arc. People are gonna die. Marielle's either gonna take Joe back or she's gonna end up dead. Maybe Love might pop up. You never know with this show. I think with You, it's definitely a type of show where you're not gonna expect, you know, an award-winning performance or an award-winning storyline. It is, you know, kind of a trashy TV show, to be honest. But it's been entertaining me 3 seasons. I kind of feel like, where can we really go next with Joe's story without Joe's narrative getting boring? Because the narrative of Joe is getting a bit boring, in my opinion. So going into this season, I was hoping to be entertained. I was hoping that my girl Marielle survives. And I was kind of hoping, possibly this season, could this be the season where Joe faces consequences? Because I kind of feel like he just can't keep getting away with this. Please let this be the season he gets bagged, finally. I'm personally ready for Joe to get his upcomings. Like, I have personal beef with him after he did Love Like That, after she accepted him for what he was. And that's how he did her. Like, yeah, she was a little bit crazy, but you were crazy too. Like, you could have been crazy together. So yeah, Justice for Love. So right off the bat, despite my title, I didn't hate this series. I thought it was okay. But there was much to be desired, which I'll discuss in this review. So let's get into it. Let's just discuss the plot. Joe, he's faked his death now. So Joe goes to Paris to try and find Marielle because that's where he assumes that she's gone. Who knows how he got there? Obviously, he's good with making up fake identities. But the last time I heard, the French were meant to be very strict with their immigration policies. So, yeah, his fakes must have been really good if he got past the authorities in Paris, honey. And in Paris, he finds out that she's in London doing an art exhibit of some sort. So he goes to London now. He finds Marielle. They make eye contact. He's thinking it's going to be a love story, baby. Just say yes. Marielle is absolutely petrified, absolutely terrified. She's like, what the fuck? And she does a runner. And Joe being Joe, he definitely processes that Marielle is absolutely, rightfully so, petrified and terrified of him. And he decides that instead of just leaving Marielle be and letting her have some peace, he's now going to run after her, because Joe has this thing where he thinks that he can convince people out of thinking that he is this terrible serial killer. So now poor Marielle, she's seen this serial killer, she's seen the guy that killed her baby father, she's running away, and now this bitch is running after her. And I just couldn't imagine like, you've seen a serial killer who's infatuated with you, you do a runner for it, and then they're running after you. Absolutely not hot. So then Joe ends up calling Marielle in this building, and he starts saying, oh, like, it's not what it looks like, and you know, your baby daddy weren't shit anyway, and he tried to ruin your life, so I had to get rid of him. And she's just basically like, nah, babes, like, it's just a bit too, like, morbid for me, and I don't really feel safe. But obviously Joe's just lack of self-awareness. He's just kind of really offended and upset that Marielle sees him as this dangerous serial killer. And he lets her go and is basically like, I'm going to prove to you that you're wrong about me, blah, 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 blah. So he lets Marielle go. She gets out alive. She's backing away down the staircase with her knife like, I don't trust you, bitch. And when she backed away with the knife, looking at him with her knife, I was like, I know that's motherfucking right, bitch. You a motherfucking smart bitch. Ain't no way I'm turning my back so you can try and strangle me or kick me down the stairs, bitch. Because Joe loves to say one thing and then do another. Absolutely not. Like, Marielle knows full well that he killed Love, so she's just like, you know what? You can't trick me, bitch. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking maybe it's just going to be another cat and mouse thing. Like, maybe he's going to say that he's going to leave Marielle alone, but he's really just going to continue stalking her until maybe Marielle ends up dead, or maybe Marielle ends up killing him in self-defense. That's what I was thinking at this point. But then they throw in the most randomest plot, and it still doesn't make sense to me, and it's this whole hitman thing. So apparently the Quinns, Love's family, have sent a hitman to kill Joe, and he's tracked him down to London. But now this hitman has decided he wants to do up quiet quitting and is giving Joe a lifeline and basically saying, I have this identity that you can use and it's all going to be good for papers and everything. I'm going to give you this identity. You lay low, use this identity. Then I won't kill you. And the only thing you have to do is kill Marielle, because obviously she's seen you and knows that you're alive. And I'm thinking, on what earth is a hitman going to be like, actually, I'm going to let you through and then set you up with this identity? So immediately I'm thinking, either Joe is the luckiest guy alive, 2, this is the most incompetent hitman ever, or 3, this is a setup, because this is just too good to be true. Joe's luck surely cannot be this good. I don't buy it and I don't believe it. But anyway, that situation happened. Now at this point, I'm thinking maybe he might just kill Marielle because, it's either him or Marielle type of thing. But what happens is he orchestrates a plan and pickpockets Marielle's necklace and then sends that to the hitman to be like, oh, I killed her. And I was immediately thinking, like, this is not very foolproof. Marielle, she's now this up-and-coming artist. All he needs to do is check up on her and see that she's still alive, and then see that she's still alive, and surely that means that's the end of you. So immediately I was thinking, this is stupid. Like, this is so unrealistic. Like, am I meant to be buying this as a legit storyline? Because it's not making sense to me. And that's how he ends up in London as this professor at this university. And it was really funny to see the locations that they were filming, because I've been to all of them. Obviously, I live in London. The university isn't in London, it's in Egham, which is like 20 minutes away from London. But I've been to that university, I've went there for a graduation. It's a really gorgeous university campus, so I'm not surprised why they chose it. And also that kind of garden/park thing that they were filming in, I literally went past that yesterday. And obviously I know the area around Soho, so I was just like, I know this area, I've been here. It's very gorgeous scenery. I can definitely see why they filmed there. But anyway, so obviously now he's this professor now. I believe he's teaching English lit. He's saying that he's not looking for love. He's saying that he's going to stay out of his neighbour's business. But we all know that doesn't last very long. Slowly but surely he starts spying on his neighbour. His neighbour also happens to be a colleague at his school called Malcolm. And when he helps Malcolm's girlfriend Kate after she was mugged, to thank him, Malcolm invites him into this elite inner circle. And in this elite inner circle, it's just basically upper class people who went to, Oxford, Cambridge, aristocrats. This is the kind of people that he's now hanging out with. It's a very common theme with Joe. He always ends up hanging out with rich people, and he's just the humble working class boy in this group. That's also a serial killer. So he goes out partying with them, and after the end of his first night out with them, somebody is dead on his kitchen counter. It's none other than Malcolm. So automatically at this point, I'm thinking he's killed again, because Malcolm was chatting shit about Marielle after Joe got drunk and opened up about his past relationships. And he was like, he didn't mention Marielle's name, but he roundabout, said, oh, my ex. And he was like, oh, your ex is a whore. She's probably sucking dick already. And Joe was obviously pressed about that. So automatically I'm thinking he was pressed about that. He got blackout drunk and then he ended up, killing Malcolm after he just continued to run his mouth. And that's what he basically thought as well. But obviously we've had a situation before where Joe had blacked out, thought that he'd killed someone, but he actually didn't. So I was kind of 50-50 whether this was the same situation. He got blackout or he killed someone, or somebody else killed this guy, left the body there, or was trying to frame him. Nonetheless, he's got a dead body in his apartment and he decides that he needs to get rid of it. And he's he's very resourceful. I don't know how he managed to find it, but he found like a butcher or something and he cut up these body parts and he just like throwing them all around London. And I was just thinking, this is quite interesting. He's now in a different city, London. I kind of feel like in London, I feel like it would be quite hard to get away with murder in London, like going around dumping body parts. I feel like that would get discovered. And, I think, I'm not sure if it's London or the UK in general, is one of the most CCTV'd up places in the entire world, I believe. So I just kind of feel like him being a serial killer in London, him getting rid of bodies in London, for me, was a bit unrealistic. Very lucky to not be caught or seen. But, it is fiction. So obviously he gets rid of the body and then he gets a text. Like, it's an encrypted text, like one of those like spyware technology where you read the text and it disappears and you can't track where the number is coming from. Basically claiming responsibility for Malcolm's murder and thanking Joe for helping them get rid of the body. And at this point I was kind of 90 that yes, he had been set up. And 10% maybe someone was just fucking with him, like maybe Love was alive and she had followed him and seen him, kill Malcolm and is now kind of like fucking with him. I'm just holding out hope for Love. But even still, when I was thinking, okay, he'd been set up and now this person's fucking with him, I was thinking it was Love. Like, Love is back for her revenge. It happened before. He thought he killed Candice. She came back alive, So Love's now coming back. She sent a hitman before, a shitty ass hitman, and now she's sending him cryptic texts. I kind of felt like maybe that could be Love, fucking with Joe, Anyway, obviously Joe is kind of like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is going on here? And he's kind of putting two and two together and he's kind of thinking, is it the hitman? Because obviously he might know that I didn't kill Marielle. Or maybe it's somebody within Malcolm's elite inner circle. I was leaning more towards the hitman because I felt like that would have made more sense as to why the hitman was so incompetent. But he calls up the hitman and the hitman's basically saying like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm here enjoying my retirement in peace. Like, don't contact me again, bitch. So that basically ruled the hitman out. And again, I just kind of felt like the hitman storyline was just a bit sloppy. Like, it still didn't really make sense to me. And the murderer / stalker checks in from time to time. And eventually the murderer / stalker figures out who Joe is and is basically like saying, and it's basically like insinuating if Joe doesn't do certain things that they ask, that they're going to expose him. So now it's up to Joe to kind of figure out who this person is. And then it kind of put the focus back onto the inner circle. There's quite a few people in the inner circle, but I'm not going to lie, a lot of them are irrelevant. So I'm just going to name the people that are relevant to the story. But in terms of who the people in the inner circle were that I thought were suspicious were Simon, the painter guy. He apparently had beef with Malcolm because Malcolm was trying to expose him for being this shitty person and stealing vulnerable people's art. I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be him because there was this point in the story where Joe is talking to one of his students, Nadia, and Nadia was basically saying the first suspect is usually the second to go. And I was like, yeah, that's probably how it's going to go in this story as well, because why else would they mention that? So for me, it was just a suspect, but it wasn't really like, I'm pretty sure it's him. Pretty high on my radar from the very beginning was Reese, because I kind of felt like he was giving champagne socialist vibes. And most of the time, champagne socialists just don't seem very genuine. And I kind of just feel like they're always very self-righteous and very much fame whores, very much attention whores, in my opinion, and very much have savior complexes. Obviously, his whole thing is that he grew up working class, and then he discovered that his daddy was actually a duke, and then he, had all this access to money. But he always says stuff like, oh, well, I grew up working class. Then like he hangs on to that. And I always think that's like very fishy, especially when you make it a point to hang out with rich people. It's just like, it's like Alan Sugar basically saying, oh, he grew up working class, like considering what he does now, it's just kind of like, well, don't even refer to your working class roots anymore. It's just really weird to me. I feel like a lot of people do this where they're not working class, but they want to be as in close proximity to working class as possible, but purely just for image. Because they still want, a hefty bank account. They still want that. And they still want to enjoy the privileges of their class. They still want to seem down to earth. And it's just really weird thing, and I've witnessed it a lot, and I just find it really weird. But yeah, he was doing that a lot, and for me that was just like a major red flag. Like, bitch, you're rich, unless you're gonna give all your money to me, shut up. I don't care about you being poor for 5 years of your life. I don't care. For me, the character that Reese represents, for me, they always give off dodgy vibes. And a few of the things that he said, like when people were dying and funerals were happening, and he was saying lots of cryptic messages, very self-righteous, like, oh, I thought this person would change their lives, like, and stuff like that. It was giving very much judge and executioner. For me, I was very suspicious of Reese, and in terms of, it's going to be the person that you least suspect, or it's not going to be the most obvious choice, it points to Reese. Then kind of the next suspect for me was Lady Phoebe's bodyguard. He was always up in Joe's business. And he was doing a lot of dodgy stuff, like, basically patting Joe down to take some money. So I was thinking, he seems like a pretty dodgy bodyguard. And he also has an in. He's the bodyguard, he's the servant. So I thought there could be potential there for him to be the serial killer, but I kind of thought it was low probability, because it seems like he was pretty determined to find out who this person was. And that seemed like genuine, like he really wanted to find out who this person was. Like he was spying on Joe because he suspected that it was him. Then we have Nadia, who is one of Joe's students who was having an affair with Malcolm. I thought it could be plausible because I kind of felt like, they had an affair. Maybe it ended on bad terms and it soured her and she turned into this killer, and then it followed on to a serial killer. And, when she was, confiding in Joe about it, he was like, oh, I know that you loved him. She was basically, no, I didn't love him. Like, she seemed offended at the fact that Joe said that, they were in love. Like she was just like, naive student who fell in love with her professor. Like, I guess they were just fucking and that's all it was. But I thought, what does that mean? Oh, you didn't love him. Did you hate him? Did you hate him enough to kill him? I've watched a lot of true crime documentaries, and, you always got to watch out for the relationships. Always. It could have been a crime of passion. Stabbing someone in the chest. Crime of passion. So, she was a suspect. And I thought if it was a thing where it was like, oh my God, like, we wouldn't expect it to be them, she would be a good candidate for that. Then there's Raoul. He's in the elite circle. He was probably who most people would think that it possibly could be. He was very suspicious. He was very standoffish. He was very mean, very rude, lacks empathy. He definitely gave off vibes that he could kill someone and not feel a type of way about it. Like, he could get that shit covered up and move on with his life. And it seemed like he definitely had a vendetta against Joe. He was stalking Kate. He was upset that Joe and Kate had gotten close with each other. So in terms of him being the killer to try and ruin Joe's life and try and expose Joe, that kind of checks out. But I felt like that was probably a bit too obvious. But I thought if it was him, it wouldn't be that much of a surprise. But I kind of felt like he would be a bit too on the nose in terms of a killer. And then for me, the final suspect is Kate, Malcolm's girlfriend. She also ends up being Joe's love interest. I just got again, Kate gave off bad vibes, and she was suspicious at times, and for me, she was probably in my top two. There was times where I was just kind of like, maybe it is her, maybe it isn't. And then there was times where I was just like, it's definitely her. It's definitely that bitch. Like, some of the ways that she was moving was very, very mad. So yeah, she was up there. So for me, I think my number one suspect was Reese. Number two was Kate. And then closely followed by Reese. Those were my top three suspects. But I'd be interested to hear from you. Who were your top three suspects? Did you just have one suspect and you just like, it's definitely you? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. So in terms of the developments in the plot, obviously Malcolm dies, that's the first big one. But then Simon gets killed, which rules him out of being the killer. And now it's kind of just like, okay, it's very clear that this person is either in the inner circle or knows about the inner circle. So that kind of for me ruled out Nadia, because it's kind of like, it's clearly someone within, the inner circle. That's what I was suspicious, kind of focused in on Kate, but Reese was also always at the back of my mind. I was like, that was pretty obvious. I bet it's you. I feel like they've basically told us that it's Reese, but there's curveballs all the time in this show. You never really know. So at this point I was thinking Reese, pretty sure, but it also could be Kate. I think Rod caught my suspicions later on down the line. In this whole Joe being texted and harassed by this murder/stalker, Joe basically decides he's going to ignore. He's not going to give, this murder/stalker the attention. So the murder/stalker is like, okay, bet. And they send in Malcolm's severed finger to the police that they kept as a trophy, I guess, or as collateral for Joe, which basically sends the police right to Joe's door for questioning. It's just for questioning. He's not really seen as a suspect. After that whole questioning thing, Kate's being very hostile towards him. The killer's basically texting her saying, oh, like, Kate, she set you up. She sent the police right to your door. You need to kill her. Like, I feel like you should kill Kate. And when that text came through, I was kind of thinking maybe it's Kate testing him, because that would definitely throw the scent off of her if, she was texting Joe to be like, oh, kill me. Because I felt like maybe Kate would know that he wouldn't do that to her. So at this point, I was suspicious of Kate. Joe and Kate do eventually end up forming this romantic connection, hooking up a few times. So again, that kind of increased my suspicions. Is this a love 2.0? Kate's been acting a bit shifty. Now she gets close with him. Is she now going to use this to manipulate him? That's what I was thinking. Eventually, down the line, Lady Phoebe's bodyguard becomes increasingly suspicious of Joe, rightly so. He was right about those bad vibes, and starts following him, following Kate, because obviously now that there's this killer on the loose, Joe is now kind of low-key stalking Kate, but under the guise that, he's just trying to keep her safe from the killer. So obviously the bodyguard is now seeing Joe stalking Kate and thinking, this guy is the fucking killer. So he ends up confronting him. And then he does this thing. He keeps patting Joe down, like to steal from him money or whatever. But during this pat down, Joe now has Malcolm's ring in his pocket. And obviously this has been planted by the murder/stalker. So obviously Joe's like, oh, I've been set up. Like, this has been planted on me. But obviously the bodyguard is like, this is crucial information. Like, I knew it was you, bitch. Like, this is the evidence. This is the evidence. So he's now trying to call the police, and obviously Joe is like, hell no, I'm not going to jail. One thing about Joe is that he does not want to go to jail. Jail is not a part of his redemption story. He ends up killing the bodyguard and then getting rid of his body, and then forging a resignation letter. Again, I'm not sure how realistic that would be. We have kind of no context on how long this bodyguard has been a bodyguard for Lady Phoebe. If this was somebody who'd been like a bodyguard of hers, since she was a little child, surely that would be, unrealistic, for him to go missing. And I feel like stuff like that, a bodyguard just going missing, does he have no family? Like, nobody reported him missing. Definitely a discrepancy there in the storyline. And then near the end of part 1, Joe ends up going on a staycation with the inner circle. They have another crazy night of partying. And someone else ends up dead. This time this person is called Gemma. Gemma She's very much a bitch, very much a sadist, very much treats people like shit and enjoys it. Joe hears a scream, goes upstairs and finds Kate at the scene looking very compromising. She's holding the knife basically. And obviously now he's thinking, it's Kate. Kate is another love. You know, I should have known. Like, I felt the vibes. But Kate swears that she didn't kill Gemma. It's not what it looks like. But at this point, I'm thinking, Kate, you looking real guilty right now. Like, if you really have been set up here, they did you real good because you're looking real guilty right now. And then also the way that she was moving after, she was basically manipulating Joe not to tell anybody that Gemma was dead, and to help her move the body. And even Joe was like saying like, she's definitely like working me right now. But I guess, you know, obviously he has feelings for her, you know, so he decides to, you know, help her out, but is kind of suspicious and thinking like, okay, I'm going to help her out, but she could definitely kind of use this against me in the future and try and pin it on me. And that's exactly what I was thinking, because Kate is definitely the type of person who would do that. And I'm not going to lie, Joe, I would do it to you too. So Joe helps Kate move the body, and as they're moving the body, Kate's peeping shit, and she's kind of just like, you know, Joe's a little too good at moving bodies and hiding bodies for me. It's giving seasoned professional. And she's like, hold on a minute. He's done this shit before. You know, so she tries to attack him and she's like, bitch, you've done this before. Like, bitch, who are you? Like, bitch, you know, how many bodies you got? And then Joe basically confesses partially and is basically like, the same thing happened to me. Like, Malcolm was dead on my kitchen table. I didn't do it, and then I got a text for some random person. He's pinning it on me and that I need to help hide the body. Then he kind of, you know, opens up about him, you know, leaving love and how he needed to escape and he's left his son behind and how life has been really hard. And Kate eats this all up. Like, she genuinely believes him and she eats it up and she's like, okay, cool. And I was thinking that's all it took, because for me, I would be like, okay, cool, but I'm definitely moving to another country because, bitch, you are very dangerous vibe. You know, Kate is definitely bad vibes herself, so I'm not surprised that this didn't really faze her. Even the way that she's handled this situation, like one of her homegirls just got murdered and she just feels no type of way moving this body and manipulating Joe. I kind of feel like maybe she has done something like this before. Joe is basically the one hiding Gemma's body, and Kate goes back up to Gemma's room to clean up the crime scene. And as she goes, Phoebe comes in the room and she's just looking at her like, bitch, what the fuck is this? This looks like a fucking crime scene in here. And at this point, we're kind of left on a cliffhanger. And for me, it was just like, now we're really going to know if Kate killed Gemma. Because I was thinking, if Kate really was the killer, then she's probably going to kill Phoebe right now. Because she's going to be like, you know, she's seen too much, let's kill her. Phoebe's still very much alive the next episode, and Kate basically just tells her everything. And she was like, okay, cool, yeah, totally. So for me, it's just very clear that, you know, rich people just be killing people and getting away with it. Like, maybe there was an accident or something, like somebody overdosed, and this is just what they be doing. They're just like, okay, cool, like she died, like let's all get our story straight. It's given very much that. They have definitely covered for each other when it comes to dead bodies before, maybe did a hit and run or something and got away with it. It's definitely giving them vibe. Anyway, as Kate is giving Phoebe the rundown, Roald is on the other side of the door eavesdropping and basically uses this as an opportunity to now attack Joe, because in his mind he's hearing Gemma's dead and Joe's helped them move a dead body, and he already has beef with Joe, especially now that Joe and Kate are basically sleeping with each other. And obviously he's obsessed with Kate. And he's obsessed with Kate. And he's had beef with Joe the whole staycation. And he caught Joe snooping in his room and literally pushed him out a window. So now he's kind of using this as an opportunity, you know, to be violent. They're out in the country. He's got that money to cover up a murder. So now he's going out with his gun on a self-defense thing. So, you know, he holds Joe at gunpoint and then he takes him back to the house where the other elites are, but bar Phoebe and Kate. I don't know why they weren't there, but they weren't there. And basically he's just telling everybody he's the killer, you know, we need to put him down, like we're going to kill him in self-defense and it's going to be cool. Like, you know, I know a judge, I can kill you and get away with it. So he's basically like, you know, I'm going to give you a head start because I'm feeling nice. but I'm sentencing you to death. Then Joe ends up running off into the woods, and Roald is now chasing him. But it's fun to him because he's like hunting Joe down, which is a bit fucked up. But this is what rich people do for fun. So they're all fighting now with the gun, and then Joe ends up knocked out. And when he wakes up, he's in this cellar, chained. But so is Roald. And I'm thinking this is when we're going to find out who the murderer / stalker is. Because on text, the murderer / stalker had been alluding to the fact that they should meet up soon. And giving him clues. So at this point, we kind of know it's not Roald. And I'm thinking it's probably not Kate. So it's probably Reese. And who was it? It's Reese. And I'm still very unclear on what Reese's motives was. I think it's just that he generally hates the rich, even though he is rich. He really does see himself as working class because he was working class for 5 years, or however long he was working class for. He's definitely been rich longer than he's been working class. So I guess maybe he's doing this thing where he's cleansing us from rich dickheads. And now he's going to, be self-righteous and run for mayor. But I'm still really do not grasp it because his whole campaign angle is the so-called eat the rich killer is, the result of the public's frustrations. So now I'm going to come in and solve all of these problems so like people won't get frustrated and kill people. Like I was just kind of like, but surely the public would still be outraged that there's a killer out there, or is he saying that the public wouldn't care that there's a serial killer out here just killing rich people? Like they wouldn't care. True. I think probably in this climate that we're in right now, partially true. But I personally don't feel like he needed to murder people as part of his mayor campaign. To me, it still doesn't really make sense to me. But anyway, he's basically like how Joe needs to kill Roald, and then he's going to pin all the murders on Roald. And then I guess Joe's going to be free or whatever. That's the deal that he's offering. Joe basically doesn't want to do it because he's trying to change it. He's, trying to change his ways. But for me, I was just thinking maybe he might do it because it's another you or me thing. But then again, Joe is trying to do redemption. So I kind of felt like he might be trying to play Reese again and then end up killing Reese or exposing Reese somehow. So, yeah, Reese basically, gives him that ultimatum, leaves him in the cellar, then sets it on fire. Roald and Joe managed to escape. There was a point where Joe could have left Reese to, burn in the cellar, but he decides to save him. And I was thinking, for me personally, I would have left him, but maybe he did actually need to save him because he needed, someone to help lift him out of the cellar. So maybe it's a good thing that he saved him, but for me, I would have been like, okay, bitch, because, this person has pushed me out a window, been accusing me of this and that, and legit tried to kill me, chased me out into the woods with a gun and made me run. Bitch, you definitely got to go. Obviously, Joe's on his moral thing, so he's kept him alive. Then that's basically how the series ends. Reese announces his candidacy for mayor. That was the whole thing of this season. He was gearing up to announce his candidacy for mayor. And it's very for the many, for the people kind of thing. And Joe is basically saying how he needs to stop him. So either he's going to kill Reese or expose him. But I'm just kind of thinking, how is he going to do all of this without compromising himself? So I'm guessing that's going to be the premise for part 2. It's going to be Joe versus Reese. But yeah, it got me thinking, would Reese win if he was, if he or who his character represents ran for the Mayor of London, would he win? I personally think he would have a good, because, the current Mayor of London, lots of people don't like him, but he is, Labour, which is the Socialist Party. So I think Reese would probably win Mayor of London if he was to stand right now. And of course, nobody knew he was a serial killer. He might win. Possibly. I'd be interested to hear from people who live in London who are watching this. Do you think Reese would win if nobody knew he was a serial killer? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. But yeah, that's pretty much the plot wrapped up. In terms of the plot, I felt like it was okay. It was solid. It was watchable. But again, there were so many, plot holes and things that really didn't make sense. I think overall the plot was a bit lazy compared to last season. Last season, like, I was very much hooked to my TV. Not so much this season. I feel like this season was definitely giving like background noise. Background noise in terms of social commentary. They do the usual stuff. They touch on race a bit, like just the typical, oh, the white college professor. I think Nadia was saying to Joe, oh, like, you're just, you know, a white college professor. And honestly, I feel like that'd be really unrealistic in the UK. I feel like in the UK, there's definitely a lot more pushback when people talk about race. Like, I feel like you wouldn't be able to get away with that at uni, especially as a person of colour. You definitely wouldn't be able to get away with saying that at uni without being penalised or without the professor feeling the type of way. I felt like that was unrealistic to put in there. What I did find interesting was the point that they brought up about kinks in the whole thing about with Phoebe and her boyfriend. I believe his name was Adam. But I found quite interesting is that he basically addresses this thing, like when he does kink, because his kink is piss play, that it only turns him on when it's done by somebody who he deems is beneath him, because obviously he's very rich and he usually does it with, you know, the servant, basically working class people. And I feel like what is very much ignored in the kink community, that a lot of these kinks are an extension of society and an extension of systemic issues in society. I feel like often when it comes to kink, where it's a kind of flip thing, the oppressor is the submissive and the oppressed class is the dom, that I feel like people feel like it's different, and people can let that slide more than if it was the other way around. But I still feel like they're just as bad as each other. Obviously, the way that it was said in the story, it was like, oh, well, he'd see Phoebe and him as equals, and that's why he can't get off when she tries to engage in piss play with him, because it needs to be with somebody who he views as below him. But they kind of just skip past that. Like, that was very wild in terms of a class issue. You know, historically and systemically, the upper class has dehumanized and objectified working class people. You often see, you know, upper class people having, you know, affairs or taking advantage of their workers because they don't really see them as full humans. They see them as objects that are to fulfill their desires, whether that's for profit, whether that's for sexual gratification. And that goes for race as well, because we did see Adam with a black busboy, and obviously he said beneath him. He's white, so he probably thinks, you know, black people are below him. So now linking that back into kink, even if you are to flip the power dynamic around, you're still taking part in the historical and systemic dehumanization of working class people or black people, whatever you're engaged. Despite the dynamic, because even though you might appear to have the power now over your oppressor, you're still the sexual object of your oppressor. And you're still fulfilling the fantasies of your oppressor and still doing labour for them. So for me, it doesn't really matter how you flip it around. It's still problematic. I thought that was quite an interesting conversation there. Obviously, you know, what you do in the bedroom is your business. I'm not going to bust into your session with a placard. I just kind of feel like let's stop the bullshit and call a spade a spade. You know, and calling everything kink shaming and trying to defend your problematic kinks. But yeah, that's just a little tea there. In terms of Joe's redemption, I guess he's getting better. But ultimately, I just feel like his sins are too great and he needs to pay. You know, after how he did my girl Love, I want to see him in prison. Personally, obviously this season, no, he has killed someone. He killed that bodyguard. So yeah, obviously he still has a problem. Only one kill this season, I think. One kill so far. We're only halfway through. But yeah, I don't think Joe will ever see true redemption. He just needs to go to jail. So in terms of the characters, obviously Marielle, she did a fantastic job. She was only in there, you know, a short time. Tati really did the damn thing with the acting. I wish we saw more of her, but then also I'm happy to see less of her if that means that Marielle is safe. So obviously Penn Badgley, he does his thing every season. I can't really fault him on his performance. He did the best that he could do with this script. Like I said, a lot of these new characters were very much props, very much irrelevant, very much poster fillers. Like, I was expecting to see a lot more, considering the promo for their characters. But a lot of them were very much irrelevant. I feel like the only relevant character was Kate. In terms of the new characters, is definitely the Kate show. And for me, in terms of Kate, I really don't like her character. I feel like she obviously is trying to distance herself away from, you know, her background and her money. And again, it's that strange thing that people do where they try to be in as close proximity to working class as possible. And she tries to pretend like she doesn't want to be, you know, this, you know, unethical person like her dad. But for me, I'm seeing you making a lot of unethical moves, Kate. So for me, Kate is bad vibes. And I prefer love. Can you tell I'm a love stan? So yeah, for me, Kate is bad vibes in my opinion. I do not buy her as this person who's trying to right generational wrongs. I do not buy that. Because I've seen her be very ruthless, and she low-key manipulated Joe. She's definitely helped hide a dead body before. So yeah, she's definitely bad vibes. I guess Roald, he played a really good villain. He played a really good dickhead. I'd give that to him. Reese, he played a good, you know, champagne socialist, you know. A lot of them are full of shit. And he played that role. I think it was a bit jarring getting used to the British accents in the beginning, and I always forget, like, people feel like this is put on, like, no, this is how upper class people speak, and it can be very jarring. So yeah, in terms of the scenery, camera work, very beautiful. Royal Holloway is such a beautiful university, you know, couldn't really fault the camera work. The score was really good in terms of, you know, building up tension in areas. Wonderful job. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much it. I mean, there's only 5 episodes. I feel like they should have just released the season in one go. I really don't think it was that deep to split it in 2 parts. I think overall, like I said before, it was an okay season. Like, it was watchable. It wasn't bad, but, you know, compared to last season, you know, it's definitely like less engaging and less interesting, and that is very visible. So I kind of feel like maybe one more season would be good, because if this is the trajectory, unless the next half of this season is absolutely mad, then I think we only need another season, unless you're going to bring love back from the dead. We only need one more season, I think. I think overall, I would probably rate this a solid 3 out of 5, because it was enjoyable enough for me. But I just wanted a bit more. I wanted a bit more. Some of the stuff is just not making sense to me. So yeah, I'm hoping the second part is just very mad. Like, I need more madness. I need more chaos for the second half. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys what you thought of part 1. What your hopes are for part 2. Let me know what your thoughts were on this season overall. Let me know what you think about the new characters, the new location. Do you hope that Joe goes to jail like I do? Do you hope that love was going to turn up? Let me know. And as always, let me know what you thought about my commentary. And yeah, that's pretty much my review done. I will be reviewing the second part when it comes out. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you have, don't forget to put my notification bell on so you know my next video is dropping. I'm also trying to get to 4.6k subscribers. That's my next short-term goal, and I appreciate if you help me hit that. And thank you to everybody who subscribed to my channel so far. Till next time, guys. Bye.